CrossFit Nation, welcome back to the podcast. Today, another two-part episode. In this one, we have Pastor Daniel Self, lead pastor at The Orchard in Carbondale. He is our lead pastor there, and it's a pleasure to have him on the show. And I think you're going to love this one and really get to see a little look behind the scenes of what goes into the life of being a lead pastor at a church and how he uses an athletic lens to guide his spiritual life. So kick back, settle in, enjoy the episode. Part one, Daniel Self. Daniel Self.
Hello.
Welcome to the Crucifix podcast.
It is good to be here with you guys.
I can't wait to start.
Thank you.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
I don't know if you're aware, but the two of us are Leos. So Daniel, welcome back to Lion's Den.
All right, let's do it.
Some biblical humor.
I love that.
For those listening that don't know, Daniel is the lead pastor at the Orchard Church in Carbondale, Colorado, and that's the church that we go to. So we get an awesome opportunity here to talk with Daniel and share his story, and then dive deeper into life as a lead pastor.
Yeah, the riveting life of a lead pastor.
Yeah. So for people who may not know you yet,
Yeah.
Can you tell us kind of how you got here?
Mm-hmm. How I got to be to this role and all
Yes.
this, you know.
Yeah.
I grew up a pastor's kid, and oftentimes pastors' kids will rebel.
Mhm.
And I watched my dad live Monday through Saturday what he preached on Sunday. And so for me, it wasn't living with this hypocrite. I saw the fruit of it, saw the reality of it. And I felt like I wanted to go into ministry from a young age. Felt the calling, went off to Baptist Bible school, which is what you all do to get the degree and become the Baptist. And I got kicked out of college. I got kicked out of Bible school. And,
I didn't know that.
Yeah. And still know my family doesn't know what I got kicked out for. And we're going to keep it that way for now.
Okay.
This is not my coming out party. But no, it was one of those things. After 2 years, I was asked to leave. And from there, I didn't know what to do.
Mm-hmm.
And looked around for jobs, still felt like maybe I was called to ministry, went to this tiny church of 200 people out in Georgia. Never been to Georgia in my life, Atlanta. And that church grew to about 13,000 people.
Wow.
So most of my pastoral training was not in seminary. I did have some seminary, never had a degree. Most of my ministry education has been through doing it.
Yeah, on the job.
Yeah. And so after that, when I was in Georgia, I had some life experiences and decided I'm going to get back home. So I came back here to my roots, smaller church, smaller valley, which I love. I love the people here. I love the culture here, and became lead pastor here at the Orchard. So it's kind of the quick version of it.
Yeah. Was there ever a moment where you like, this is what I want to do, that sticks out to you?
I had a lot of those moments. When I was 16, I really wanted to be a youth pastor. And life kind of takes you through different, your calling through different forms. And I think there were different times where God would call me into the next thing, and I would have to re-wrestle with that burning bush. Do you really want me to do this? But truly, then you go through some life-breaking things, and you go, I don't know if I want to do this, or I don't know if I'm qualified to do this, or the shame starts talking to you.
Mhm.
And so you have to renew that calling time and time again. So for me, there's really been a few times. One was when I was young, and that first one, but then one of the biggest ones was coming back here to this church, because I was really burned out and really burned by the church. And I never lost my faith in God, but I was done with the church, and I was done with ministry, and I was going to just be a Christian who worked at a bank. That's what I was doing. And when this call came in, and God spoke into my heart, I wanted nothing to do with it.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah. I wanted nothing to do with working back at a church. And it really, that was a year of wrestling. Like, if I'm going to do this again, I'm going to do it the way, God, I think you made me, and the way that you would have it be done.
I think that's the litmus test for a calling, as opposed to just things you want to do.
Yeah.
Is that you don't want to do it.
Yeah.
It seems important, and you feel like you should do it, but you don't want to do it. That's kind of my litmus test.
That's a good one. When I was younger, I was just all confidence and ready to go. But as an older man, I was ready. It was kind of like Moses in the Old Testament, where he said, God, send somebody else. Have anyone else do this. And that's where I was, Yeah. And then God's like, my son, I want you to do it. So that's why we're here today.
Do you know anybody that had the intention of just being a youth pastor and then stayed a youth pastor?
Rarely. It does happen.
It does.
But when you get older and they want to do what's called a lock-in, which is a 24 hours thing,
I remember that.
you realize, I don't want to do this ever again.
Yep.
And I've had enough pizza. and I've cleaned up enough vomit. Like, I don't think I want to do this anymore.
That's really funny.
Because I know Pastor Joby says the same thing. All he ever wanted to do was be a youth pastor,
Yeah.
and then he got called to what he's doing now, and he's a mega
Yeah.
church. And I'm pretty sure Josh Houghton said the same.
Yeah.
Yeah. And if you hear from the female ones, they end up getting pushed out by their husbands.
Yeah.
Well, a lot of times the youth grow up, and you kind of, a lot of the people who are in the church now would have been in my youth group back then.
Mhm.
And so, still, it's the same thing. The problems are just bigger.
Yeah.
So
That's interesting. Youth pastors are so the youth pastor I had growing up,
Mhm.
who did like confirmation and all of that stuff in the church I grew up in. He's a pastor now of his own church,
Mhm.
but there's a real connection
that's how it happens.
to youth pastors too.
Yeah.
That's a really important role.
I loved it. And
Mhm.
honestly, most all my training came from those days.
Yeah.
It was a lot of fun.
That's pretty cool. Okay, so leading a church carries a lot of weight spiritually, right? And emotionally. So what disciplines keep you spiritually strong as the leader of the Orchard?
That's a good one. This is such a public role. It's such a fishbowl. If we go places, we see people.
Mhm.
My wife comes back and says, somebody said hi to you, and I don't know them. Like, there's just a lot of public to it. And you have to be okay with that. But for me, the discipline is practicing in private.
Mm.
And it is the private practice. It is growing privately and being rooted privately. And that's honestly probably what keeps pastors. That's where pastors get into trouble, when they're publicly being a pastor, preaching, and privately being more and more empty.
Mm.
And if for me, it is doing the disciplines and practices that fill me with fresh spirit, the fresh water from the Spirit, so I can pour it out on Sundays or other places. And so that is probably that. I have my own spiritual disciplines: fasting, reading the Word, prayer. I like to worship, private worship, not just public worship, things like that. If I'm going to do it in public, I really want to make sure I'm disciplined in private. And as far as just to connect this to athletes, one thing is I was thinking through this. So when it comes to private disciplines and in public performance or being a pastor, part of what I've loved about your podcast and what you guys are doing is I view all of my life through an athletic lens. Now, I was an athlete in high school. I wouldn't say I'm an professional athlete these days. But the way that I have begun to view my life, my spiritual life, my family, my marriage, is through an athletic lens. And I don't know if you guys, there's a book I just finished by Jason Jaggard called Beyond High Performance. It is one of my favorite books. And he says that all of us look at life and we see life either through a prisoner, work, life, family, all these things, faith.
Yeah.
Prisoner, let's take work. I have to have the money, so I'm a prisoner to my job. But then sometimes you have a calling, like we were talking about. Now I'm a missionary. And if you look at a missionary, they will burn themselves out for the mission. They'll do anything they can. Like a missionary is, I'll impoverish myself. I'll get tired. It's all for my calling. It's all for the mission. And God is really, that's where pastors get burned out. That's where people get burned out.
That doesn't seem like that's going to work either.
No, but also as a mom, my kids are my mission. I'm going to burn out. I'm going to do it all. And what changed for me was looking at life through an athletic lens. Because as an athlete, there's still a goal. There's still a mission. There's still a calling.
Yeah.
You guys are going to a competition here pretty soon. There's something public ahead of you where you have to perform. But if you're not doing something in private, you're going to be exposed in public.
Right.
And for me as a pastor, asking about private disciplines is so important, because just like an athlete, there is a public part of my job that I need to know I'm proving it and preparing in private. And so for an athlete, like you look at people who they look at their faith and they say, oh, there's these disciplines or there's these practices. I don't really participate in those, or I do them once in a while. But for an athlete, practice is the work, right? Practice is the grind for the glories at some point. And so if I begin to look at my faith through an athletic lens, the practice is where I go. I'm in the gym. And even for athletes, failure, you guys seek failure, I'm guessing, in your lifts.
For growth.
Yeah. Failure isn't something that you avoid at all costs. But for me, in my faith and in life with my marriage, we avoid failure. But what I've learned is if I have the athletic lens on there, because athletes view failure as an opportunity. It's a growth.
Yeah. An exposure of a weakness that needs to be improved.
And even in practice, you live to failure. Like you're always on the edge of failure in places. And if you apply that to your personal life, we fail with sin.
Oh, yeah.
We fail with dysfunction,
Right.
divorce, whatever it would be. There's this huge failure. And for people who have an athlete mindset, it's very different, because people who don't have that, failure defines your identity. Like my divorce, it tells me who I am. My sin now tells me who I am. For an athlete, failure doesn't tell me who I am. Failure is an opportunity to learn. And you've heard the saying, I say it in our house, when we win, we celebrate. When we lose, we learn.
Right.
When you lose, whether in character, whether in faith, whether in a fight in marriage, impatience with kids, or in my faith, failure, when I lose, I learn. So applying these disciplines, applying the athletic performance pieces to my faith has probably been one of the most fulfilling practices I've ever had.
Wow.
And to take it even further, if that's okay.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
please.
An athlete, if I just start to apply this to my entire faith life, athletes, most often, the ones I've been around who are training, like really training for something, they care what goes into them.
Yeah.
I'm conscious of what goes into my body.
Right.
Because I'm preparing for something. What if we looked at our faith like that? And so when you begin to look at your faith the way Paul does, and Paul talks about striving and straining and pressing ahead and trying to reach a goal, and there's all this athletic language. Athletes care what goes into them. So we talk about spiritual disciplines and practices, and people roll their eyes and go, oh, one more thing to do. Could you imagine talking to an athlete and go, let's talk about your nutrition? And they go, oh, one more thing to do. You can't get to the level that you want to go compete at if you're not focused on what's coming in.
Right.
So I apply the athletic principles to my faith, and suddenly, verses where Jesus says, good comes out of the good a man puts in, and bad comes from the bad a man puts in. So that's true of also nutrition. That's also true in faith.
Right.
What I'm feeding my heart will train me, and it will come out. So an athlete cares for their nutrition, their practice. When there's failure, they learn. Athletes have a growth mindset. I think if more Christians could look at their faith, their marriage, their parenting, their work, their life, through the lens that Paul talks about, I think there would be a lot more growth mindset than checking off these boxes of, did I do my quiet time? Did I do a devotional? It's feeding your faith.
Yeah, because you almost want to do it at that point.
Yes.
It's the difference. An athlete is willing to do it because they love the outcome. And so they're willing to do whatever it takes to get to that outcome.
That's exactly it.
And I think a step further, we've spoken about this before, but I hadn't considered it from that perspective, is particularly in your perspective, the amount. So we think about, like, Steph Curry is a good example. And Steph Curry, we see him shoot 3-pointers like nobody's ever shot 3-pointers before, and we assume that he's a good shot.
Right.
But most people don't know that since he was about 13, he's been shooting 1,000 3-pointers a day.
Oh my God.
Multiplied that over a 30-year career, and it's what we see is so fractional of the amount of work that went in the dark. And so now I start to think, I'm reframing my thoughts, because I'm here thinking you are such a naturally gifted pastor, but you're not. It's because I didn't see any of the work in the shadows.
You nailed it. So Steph Curry or any athlete, most of the work they ever do is invisible. You'll never see it.
Yeah.
You'll see, take CrossFit competition, take basketball, whatever the sport is, you'll see that finite place and you go, look what they just did. But most everything that athlete has done has been invisible. And for Christianity, most of our work should be invisible.
Oh, it's interesting, because oftentimes people want to flip it, right? Where it's like the public is what they want everybody to see, but maybe in private, they're not doing what they could be doing.
Well, and it shows,
It
if
shows.
you're not doing the work in public in any arena, it shows. That's if you're not doing it in private in any arena, it shows in public. But then we want to say, well, he's naturally gifted. He's a good pastor because his dad was a pastor. He's a good pastor because he talks well, but it's not. It's the work.
The amount of discipline I put into my skill set of public speaking, but also just into keeping my spirit alive and fresh and seeking God. Like for a Christian, the work, this preparation shouldn't be just practice. It is the work of being a Christian. For the same reason, Steph Curry, shooting a ball isn't something, hey, I'm just going to do this. It is what he does. It's the actual work that, and what athletics do that I love is it exposes you. You know, it really does. When you get to that competition, everyone's going to, jiu-jitsu is my sport of choice. I love it. Done it for a long time. Not the best at it, but I love it. And I've done lots of competitions, done all these things. And I remember my first competition, I got there and I was all confidence, because you're in the gym, you're doing these things and you're a hobbyist and you get there and there's a lot of difference when you're facing someone who you don't know and they want to choke you unconscious. When I'm in the gym with my friends, we're taking care of each other. Oh, is that okay? Yeah,
Right.
but when you step on that mat, I remember I looked this guy in the face, we high-fived and I thought, this guy wants to kill me.
He wants to kill me.
Yeah. And the amount of adrenaline and then everything that I had been training was suddenly exposed. And the amount of fatigue I felt, everything in that was such a failure. And I learned from it. And my next competition, I knew that whatever I did in private was going to have 3 minutes of complete exposure in front of everyone. And losing that is not my, sitting there tapping out and going, okay, I did not want to have that experience any longer. And so my practice completely changed. Apply that to my being a dad. I get exposed when I lose, when parenting my kids and they're not putting on their shoes for the 100th time, whatever it is.
Yeah.
And I just blow up, lose my patience. I get irritable and frustrated. I have this moment of exposure. Now, what that actually can be for someone who has an athletic mindset is that is a revelation of something inside of me.
Right.
And that if I can actually live like that, if I'm not refilling and refueling my spirit. The Bible puts it this way. Your fruit reveals your roots. And if there's not fruit in a Christian's life, and the Bible lists it, love, joy, peace, patience, kindness, goodness, faithfulness, gentleness, self-control. If we don't see more of these fruits, it's like Steph Curry going and not hitting any of his shots.
Yeah.
It should say something to us.
Right.
But we give ourselves all this grace, and God gives us grace. But the reality is Christians should look at the fruit and go, what does this say about the root?
Yeah. Yeah, I love that. And there's 7 billion Steph Curry's not hitting those shots.
Exactly.
There's one that's doing the work, and then he's recognized for hitting the shot.
I love that. Such a good analogy.
I think the same thing. I get two follow-ups to this, but I believe what you're explaining is what I call confidence. People like to, again, label individuals as being naturally confident, but it's a skill, and that skill comes from doing so much work in the shadows that when you step into any opportunity to then showcase that work, you will appear confident, but it's because you've done it so many times that it becomes, it's second nature. And so for you to step up in the pulpit, you're going to look confident, but it's because you've worked so much from behind the scenes. And so I think there's this tendency for the society to want to label people as naturally confident, but that undermines the amount of work that went in to make them that way.
Pressure. So being confident in those moments. There's my only confidence in public moments of pressure is because of private preparation.
Yeah.
And there is nothing more terrifying in my world than stepping up completely unprepared. I'm not talking about unprepared on paper. I'm talking unprepared in my soul and my spirit. Just that's when you feel the fraud. That's when you feel the fake. And then, so confidence comes from a humility in front of my Lord and Savior. When I step up there and I'm not in a place of that, I'm having to fake something to promote something about myself that you guys would see me confident that I don't truly feel. And that's where you cave under pressure. I can only imagine is like going to a competition and knowing I did not put in the work.
Yeah.
I do not have what it takes. This guy is going to tap me. My cardio is going to last me 1 minute, so I better win it in a minute. Like that is so terrifying to me, and that works against the confidence.
Yeah.
So for me, any confidence you would see that I have, is it comes from my private life.
Yeah.
Of being humble before Him and trying to step up there.
Yeah.
Being fully prepared.
And then I think the one kickback to the analogy with the sportsmen and the professional athletes, so for them to then take like a faith grounding, without that, we see athletes get an injury or lose their career and entirely dismantle their identity. And so that's, I think, the final step for a lot of these athletes. What are your thoughts on that one?
So when they've poured their whole life into one thing, when that goes away, what am I? And that speaks a lot to having your entire life striving toward an achievement that you're asking to define you. And it can be really some of the greatest, most healthy athletes in their spirit. They still, when you are so singular, because some of these athletes, they have to be 100, I'm all in, my family's in, everything revolves around this goal.
Yeah, like the Kobe Bryant types.
Michael Phelps, everything in his life. And he actually is the one that, when he won it all, he's the one that tanked into depression because all those medals never did for him what he wanted.
Well, it's like the sermon, the more box, right?
Yeah.
Where you put in your more.
And if my more is in all those achievements, the bottom line is this: I have an infinite need in my spirit for identity. And I can go achieve everything this world has to offer with money, fame, fortune, medals, whatever. And those finite resources will never satisfy my infinite need. And so you say, when they get to the end, we're all going to get to the end. There's an expiration date on everything we're achieving right now. And some of us will face that terrifying moment. Maybe it's retirement, maybe whatever it is, when we go, oh my goodness, all those things that were defining me, I was constantly having to feed them to satisfy that. But the ache is eternal.
Right.
I must find an eternal resource to fill my identity.
What is that saying where it's like, I don't know if you've said it, Daniel or Aaron, like you're filling a God-shaped hole. You're like trying to fill a God-shaped hole with literally anything but God.
I quoted it from Daniel.
Okay. Yeah.
No, that's it.
And it just won't.
It will never fulfill it. And so I think one of and that was honestly, even in ministry, somebody told me when I was a young pastor, he walked in, he was this grizzled veteran, and I respected him greatly. And he goes, you know what, guys, be careful, because you will be able to be a preacher completely out of your flesh without even thinking about God if you're not careful. And I'm like,
don't you think that happens a lot?
Give me a break.
People?
Oh my gosh. I didn't believe him. I was like, maybe you, dude, but I am way too good I am so holy. I love Jesus. Give it time.
Yeah.
Life gets busy. Life gets this, and you just and if you're not filling, you will, and you start chasing these other achievements or chasing these other goals, pretty soon you realize I am doing all of this, whether it's ministry, whether it's athletics, whether it's whatever endeavor, parenting, anything. I'm doing it out of an emptiness that is seeking my significance from the world. And that's when it's a recipe for burnout, no matter what.
Right, because as a pastor too, you're giving your energy to so many different people all the time. So when I think about that too, I guess I'm curious, do you have any rituals or things that you do to sort of like when you're leaving work, going home, to kind of like clear that so that you're there for your family? Because I'm imagining it's incredibly hard to not take home every single thing. You hear a lot from people.
You should have my wife on the podcast to answer this question, because this is a constant discussion in my house. My wife is a very talented therapist, counselor. And so I get to live with her, and she gets to help me. But I am constantly bringing stress home.
Of course.
I'm bringing burden home. Coming from the hospital, coming from a living room where someone just died, or there's, I stopped being surprised by what I'm going to face every day in this position. And I'll admit, I haven't yet figured out how to go home and just completely set it aside. I will go home, pull up in the driveway, and I will not go inside for 5 minutes. I'll go through all my whatever email, whatever messages, clear it, because I don't want to be on my phone in front of my kids when I go in. I want to be fully present. And literally, I have to go through a small moment where I say, Jesus, I'm going to leave this job in the truck.
I like that.
And I'm going to go in and be dad, not pastor. I'm going to go in and be dad to my kids, because they don't need a pastor.
Right.
And the reason pastors' kids rebel is because their dad's a pastor at home. They want dad.
Yeah.
And I'm going to leave pastor in the truck, and I'm going to go be a husband. And I don't be it perfectly, but for me, it has to be so, it kind of sounds silly to be out there talking to myself in a truck, but I've learned I have to be so intentional. It doesn't happen by accident.
Yeah.
It just doesn't.
Yeah, I can't imagine.
So that's a good question.
Do you feel the weight of like being the lead pastor, like the weight of all the sheep on your shoulders?
Yes and no. Yes, it's a great responsibility. There's a lot of pressure. But pressure also is something that, athletes get pressure, and pressure's a privilege. You hear that a lot. So yes, there is that. And I feel a huge responsibility, but it's also humbling. And one thing God does, I'm very visual in my prayer time. One thing that I've learned about myself is I'm very visual. And so instead of praying and sitting down and like folding my hands and trying to close my eyes, I'll go for a walk or I will use my imagination, and God guides me in these prayers. And so one thing God does a lot with me, and we go to this, is we look out over the church and I see a bunch of people, a bunch of sheep, and I ask him what I'm doing. Like literally, this is his church.
Right.
I'm just a steward.
Mm.
And every Wednesday we have a prayer meeting for the church. We have half an hour, we pray for God to move. And it's the most important meeting of the week because I'm just not a good enough preacher. I have to have God move in this place. And every Wednesday, the first thing I do is I lay on my face at this prayer meeting, and I have a shepherd staff. I push it to the middle. And I say, everything is yours. Like, this is yours. I cannot be the kind of preacher that thinks this is here for me.
Mm-hmm.
The people are here to make me feel good, or the size of the church, or the amount of growth, because if you need them, you can't lead them. And so I really have to get to a place where I say, Jesus, this is all yours. Everything. That's the only way I know how to combat all the different parts of the question you just asked.
Yeah, we spoke to a guy, Gabe Fisher, last weekend, who runs a CrossFit as a ministry in South Africa. And we asked him a similar question, and he said the same thing, that he's just a steward of what he's doing, and he pushes it away, which is one thing to say it. But then when we posted the episode, we actually got a comment immediately from one of his members saying, this is so true. At minute 39:40, you asked him this, and I can tell you since the first day I walked into his gym, every time I said, what you're doing is incredible, he said, it isn't me.
Yeah.
None of it's me.
Yeah.
And so it was cool to see her give feedback on that.
The one thing Steph Curry does not have going for him that your friend Gabe does, and I do, is that Steph Curry, I don't know if Jesus is helping his shots go in the basket. Now, sometimes I look at it and I go, maybe Jesus did help that one go in there. But like your friend Gabe, the reason that I love that he can give the glory and the credit away is because he knows who's doing the real work.
Yeah.
And that's so important. As soon as you start to think, I'm doing the work here, you start to get pride begins to come in, and then you start to think you got it. And then all that private stuff kind of goes away. And that's the recipe for failure.
Just speaking to a really good friend of mine from Australia this morning, we've been texting backwards and forwards. He's very curious right now, and he listens to the podcast. He knows us both. He listens to the podcast. And so there's just that little bit of curiosity. So he's reaching out with some questions. And one of the things that we discussed was that we're both ex-military and have seen some incredible people do some incredible things, and it's hard to not give them the credit for the amount of work they did. And so I was speaking to him about that, and how, I mean, that's only the first step. The second step is to be able to take full responsibility for your sin, but then take zero responsibility for the good things.
Yeah.
And so I'm like, dude, there's a whole other step to this.
That's funny.
There's a part of that it is deep. That's really cool.
Yeah. We're hoping he might be our first saved through the podcast.
Oh, man. Praying for that guy. That's
Shout
awesome.
out. Okay. Daniel, I'm curious, in your view, what are the biggest cultural pressures that you see today that are pulling people away from authentic faith?
That is a great question. What are the pressures on culture today pulling people away from authentic faith? I'm going to get in trouble on this one, but I'm going to go there. First and foremost, politics. I really believe that people begin to let their politics inform their faith in some ways. And politics can be a place where you begin to see us and them, winning and losing, me versus you. And Jesus makes it very clear. First of all, he says, pray for your enemies. And second, Paul said, our battle is not against flesh and blood. It's not against other people. And so for me, the battle as a pastor, I know that all people are who I want to preach to. And when it comes to politics, usually you're just preaching to half of them and you're demonizing the other half. And so politics can really get in there and make the battle seem so temporary. And what's crazy is, like, politics in America are the biggest thing right now. We're going to get to heaven, and Democrats and Republicans are going to be like, I mean, down through history, that's a rather new thing. There's going to be all kinds of people knowing Jesus is the only way. Not you vote for. The second thing that there's been so much discussion with me and other pastors in this think tank about the rise of AI and how that affects spiritual life, and people getting counseled by AI, and AI is a narcissist, and it will kind of always help you feel good about some things, and actually going to AI with my questions about myself or my life that I used to go to the Spirit and ask God.
Yeah.
Mm.
And but it's so easy to see why. Well, if I go to God and I say, God, should I take this job? Should I marry this person? Should I do this? I don't always get the answer right there.
Yeah.
Yep.
I'm looking for peace. I'm seeking wisdom. It could be a month process. Well, I go to AI. It's a 10-second
Instant.
process,
Mm.
and it tells me take the job.
Yeah.
And so it kind of can short circuit the seeking and dependence on the Spirit. God says, walk in the Spirit, like travel and talk and receive. So I see technology is part of it, but also definitely social media. A lot of the challenges I'm getting lately are people sending me. It used to be they'd send me 2-hour YouTube videos and say, "Watch this,
Yeah.
and then you'll really be a good pastor and know something."
Yeah.
Now they're sending me 15-second TikToks. And so it's hard for me to compete with 30-minute sermon on a Sunday
Mhm.
with all the information out there.
Yeah.
And so I truly believe that the church, as we continue to evolve through this culture, the church is going to have to recognize that we can never compete with the technology
Right.
and the TikTok and the Instagram. And I will never be able to compete with all those amazing, like the greatest preachers in the world are now at everyone's disposal.
Yep.
I missed 10 years ago when they only knew about me.
Right.
Now I'm compared to everyone, and I'm
Shoot.
just,
Yeah.
and so, but what the church can do that no one can do online is life on life.
Mhm.
And we did something a couple weeks ago where we had people write down their burdens anonymously. Like, what is your burden with anxiety?
Oh, yeah.
And see, that part of the church is that we are together, and it's a community, and we are growing. And TikTok will never be able to do that. I mean, they say, "Oh, dude, there's a great community we're doing," but I get it.
Yeah.
Kids. I'm not telling you not, whatever. But
Well, I
I'm
don't
just-
know. I think that depends on your definition of community.
It really
Exactly.
does. But when you're sitting there crying with somebody who's talking about their divorce or they're alone, like their loneliness, right there praying for them,
Yeah.
you can't get that.
I think about AI when I think about, say, the church is going to fit into this beautifully as well. But like I think about personal trainers, and I think about like music stars, and
Mhm.
there's this fear around what's it going to do to the careers. And I immediately, from the moment AI started, I saw it different. I'm like, if everything is digital, imagine how much value the singer performing live now has, because you get to go there and you know for a fact you're watching a human. That value goes through the roof because everything else is digital. And the same thing with the trainer.
Yeah.
You can go online and get incredible workouts and package. That's where I get my stuff a lot of the time, from AI.
Yeah.
But at some point, people are going to be like, I just want to do this with a coach because I want that human interaction.
Absolutely.
And the church will be the same. So you're going to have these mega churches that post all their stuff and their podcasts and whatnot, but they want human.
You got
And the more we go into robotics, the more they're going to want human. So your value actually goes up with the increase of
So that's a
AI.
good way to look at it. My value goes up with it.
Your
And
value.
I love AI. I use it a lot.
Same.
I'm fascinated by it. I'm all in on some areas. And so I love that the more AI takes, I mean, the revolution is here and it's coming. It's only going to get
Yeah.
bigger, but the more authentic human interaction is going to matter.
Yep.
So it's good.
And to touch on politics for a minute, this is me, and so I'll just speak for myself.
Mhm.
I really see politics right now and the way it's being weaponized as a weapon of the enemy, where it's purposely taking people's attention away from their connection to God and to each other. And I see that as an intentional weapon being used against us, of keeping people in anger, fear,
Yeah.
and those kinds of things. I think that's interesting.
That is such a good point. I loved how you put that that politics is being weaponized against us. That is absolutely true. And the media, knows how to wield that perfectly. And whatever channel you're on,
Oh, yeah, they
they're
make so much money on
absolutely
it.
targeted attacks. And like suddenly, I mean, if you ever are having a good day and you want to be angry, turn on the news and they will somehow find a way to get you worked
Oh,
up,
yeah.
right? And so for me, part of it was just unplugging and taking the news in the way I want to consume it, when I want to consume it. But here's the reality is that God created us for a battle to fight
Mhm.
and to be a part of something bigger than us. Like each of us wants to be a part of something big and greater. Each of us wants a battle to fight, and we have it. Like we fight for our family, we fight for our character. We have battles, and politics comes in, and the way it is weaponized, to use your term, it replaces all that. Now I'm part of something really big and really important, and the battle's right here. And politics is important. But the way it's been weaponized against us, it's just filling a lot of those places where I have seen so many people who are in the church following Jesus, praying alongside of me for God to do great work. And then they come to me and say, hey, why won't you endorse this person?
Mhm.
And I say, because I'm here to endorse Jesus.
Yeah.
And they leave. And I
love it.
honestly, I gladly do. I do help them find the church that endorses their side. But at the same time, I've actually reflected this guy. You were here because you wanted to see people who don't know Jesus come to Jesus. That's happening here. What do you want now? He goes, I want to see a church that's going to take a stand for what I think is right.
Interesting.
And it was literally a platform. And so he left the eternal mission
Yeah.
for one that is very temporary.
A
And that is
flesh. Yeah.
so common.
Interesting.
So the battle has gotten really, I mean, I've sat in this office and had people look at me and say, Pastor, you need to have everybody who voted this way, the other, whatever their way is, the other way,
Yeah.
stand up in church. You need to have them repent in front of everybody for how they voted.
Oh my gosh.
And I go,
no.
and I go, I'm not going to do that. And they go, you are a coward. You're afraid for standing for Jesus in your church is going to fail. And I want to let people, like, the easiest thing for me to do would be to give in and choose a side.
Yeah.
That's the cowardly way. It is harder for me to stay out of that and above that and say Jesus.
Yeah, that's where I'm wondering how you take care of yourself and not, because I am a chronic people pleaser. Like, this is a thing for me, but to then let that go. How do you let that go?
Part of what really has helped me, 2020 was clarifying for a lot of people, right?
Yeah.
It was clarifying for me to see that to see what the battle is, to see what the veil, what was almost this veil, this trick that came over, and like, this is all that matters. And to see so many people put politics in the place of what God would actually. If we evangelized faith the way we evangelize our political opinions, the word of God would spread quickly.
Right.
But I have people who are terrified to share that they believe in Jesus, who will go tell a stranger what they believe politically.
Yeah.
Interesting.
And so it's
Yeah.
replaced so much of how God intended us to be a part of something bigger.
Why do you think there is such a fear to declare your belief and love for Jesus? What is that culturally?
Culturally is the right word. That in America, I mean, almost anyone can come to our door and knock and sell or deliver something. But if you come to my door and knock and say, "Can I tell you about Jesus?" Like, that's like,
Yeah.
no.
Yeah.
How dare you?
Yeah, exactly. And so part of it is just there are so many things in our culture that are allowable and celebrated and wonderful. But Christianity, man, we're so familiar with that in this nation. Like, other religions are celebrated and given space.
Mm-hmm.
Where Christianity is at. We got to cut that out. But let's add this other stuff right back in here. And I'm talking in schools. I'm talking in all kinds of places. And so part of it is our culture is turned against a lot of that. And I'm not truly sure why.
Mm-hmm.
But I know that for a lot of believers, they would say, I don't feel confident. I don't feel confident enough to speak for God, but I feel confident enough to speak for my political party.
Interesting.
I
Yeah.
have a thought on that without trying to go too deep into Aaron's conspiracies.
Let's go.
But I don't think any of it's a mistake. We talk about this often. They want us fat. They want us poor. They want us unhealthy. They want us dependent on their meds. They want us dependent on the government. None of that's an accident, and none of that is really deniable. It's pretty obvious in what's available to us and what's forced on us and what's encouraged through society. I think in addition to that, they want us godless because that's what gives us the power against any controlling state, whatever that looks like. And so to separate us from God, then, like you mentioned, we have this innate desire to want God so badly. It's in us and we can't help that. So if they pull God out and make us a godless society, we will look wherever we can find a God.
Yes.
And the first thing is politics, music stars, Hollywood, and we'll just latch onto them.
Ourselves.
And so then they have more control
Yeah.
over us than they could possibly imagine because they've replaced God with themselves.
That's a really good point.
And there's like a real narrative around it, kind of like Christianity being for dummies. Like, that's
especially
really
for
out there.
our age group.
Yeah.
That's how we were raised.
Yeah.
If you believe in God, you believe in the tooth fairy.
Yeah.
Yeah, like you're kind of like
Like, we're past that. Did we all agree that was not?
yeah, and kind of like dumb or silly. So we can. I guess this is a tangent. So yes, to all of the things Aaron said too, I believe like they fully want us connected to putting anything in the God
Mm-hmm.
shaped hole that's not God.
Yeah.
Um, and I remember when I am about at my year of stepping into the orchard.
Mm-hmm. I know it's coming up.
Yeah, after a year of thinking about it and not.
Mm-hmm.
And I remember seeing someone who's a member of this church at the rodeo this summer. And she said to me, and she whispered it into my ear, you need to be careful because when you go to Christ, the enemy's going to come for you. And the different ways that's shown up.
Mm-hmm.
But one of the ways that it's shown up for me is essentially being called all of those things by someone who was one of my best friends is like, well, this is for dummies and you're a dummy. And just gets me thinking about like, yeah, that is the narrative.
Yeah.
That, anyways, it's curious what that
really
is. But
good.
I think Aaron's probably kind of nail on the head with that. Is that is the enemy, those attacks of like, don't be connected to God, be connected to literally anything else.
Right. And one thing I want to be careful of is when we even talk in those kind of languages, like they want us to be this. There is a they, but the Bible is clear. We do have an enemy, and it's not humans. Now, there are humans acting on behalf of these people, but if you think there's people who are dangerous and bad and evil, the greatest thing you can do is go pray for them.
Yeah.
Right.
And we're commanded to do that because, I mean, like, we should pray for our people in authority, our presidents, our vice presidents, the Congress. We should pray whether you agree completely or disagree. The greatest thing for as believers that could happen is for people in influence to come to Jesus.
Mm-hmm.
And so that's part of it. But
I agree with what you're saying, so much so that I continually or consistently remind myself that even if somebody is doing something that I interpret as like the utmost evil, I try to remind myself that the devil is using them as a prop.
Yes,
It's not them as a human because they're created in the image of God. So I need to remind myself often that if someone's attacking me, then it's not the person attacking me.
Yeah.
It's whatever enemy.
And that's true. And there is a great deception. There's a great deception in this world. There always has been, whatever culture, whatever time in history, the deception has been from the garden, from the earliest was, hey, you can be God. And we have taken that and throughout our entire history. And even now, what you're talking about, when you take God out of it, the easiest person to put in there is my own self.
Oh, yeah.
I'm going to eat what I want. I'm going to do what I want. I'm going to listen, I don't feel good. I'm going to take whatever pills. I'm going to make me on the throne feel as good as I can. And that's a lot of how people are living life. I've just enthroned and crowned myself. And there we go.
It took me so long to understand what people were talking about when they said there is no such thing as an atheist.
Mm-hmm.
And then it finally clicked that the person who describes himself as an atheist is actually worshiping themselves because they're in such staunch belief that there isn't a creator that they're putting everything that is occurring has to be attributed to them.
Yeah.
And so in essence,
I am sitting as judge over any sort of divine being that would even be out there.
Exactly.
You know what I'm saying?
It sounds exhausting. I did it for a long time.
It's exhausting.
Yeah.
It's exhausting playing God in my life.
Like yeah, my gosh. Yeah.
While
true.
we're on the topic sort of of the enemy, I have a question here. If we're in a fight against darkness, and for me, where I'm passionate is specifically around child exploitation and the vulnerable. How should a person or a child of God balance the meekness of the shepherd with the violence required to protect the flock?
Wow. Now there's a question.
That's a big one.
How should someone who follows Jesus balance this like merciful, peaceful self, but also a person of action who protects, right? Well, a shepherd must both be tender with the lamb and violent with the wolf.
Mm-hmm.
So that's part of it. Is there are people who have terrible intentions for the most vulnerable. And Jesus is very clear. If you harm a child, he goes into that. And so part of it is protecting the vulnerable. And if you look at it like a flock, and as a shepherd, we all have people that we are a part of in that role with. It is protecting. Also, God has different callings for different people. There are people who are complete activists in an area of their life where they are passionate and gifted. And they come to me and say, shouldn't the church be passionate and activist here? And I say, no, but you should. And how can I resource you and support you? And I have someone else over here And so I think part of that is finding the place where God has asked you to mobilize, to activate, to step in. Because for someone, it's going to be super local and very behind the scenes and very merciful. And they're acting on behalf of the homeless and shrewdly stepping out. And for another person, it's going to be going and militantly going into hotel rooms
Mhm.
and taking out bad guys.
Mhm.
And both of those people are passionately working on calling, and they wouldn't do well if you switch them.
No.
Okay.
I'm not going to be going into hotel rooms,
Yeah, exactly.
but I will be cooking dinner for those people who
Yes,
are.
exactly. Someone has to receive the child and
Yeah,
love them
that
and
is
recover them.
totally.
And someone has
Yep.
to go in there and take care of the people who are doing it.
Mhm.
And so I think part of this is seeing, like, what is my temperament? What's my calling? How has God made me? Like this, I want this guy to come save the children.
Yeah.
Look at that. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
And so I think part of it is that is the balance of you and your life asking God, how far do you want me to take this?
Yeah.
Because there are some people in this world who are working right now in secret to go save people that we don't know about. And I'm glad they're out there, and they're doing things that we would never even imagine
Yeah.
are done or that should be done. And they're saving people.
I'm so thankful
That's
for
a
them.
great answer.
Oh, it's so interesting. Okay. So I have a question for you. If Jesus walked into many churches in America today, what do you think he would change or confront?
Yeah, you guys, you want to get me like.
Do we want to get you in
Trap
trouble?
question.
Yeah, you do.
Nothing. You're all perfect.
Well, it depends on who you ask. If you ask a lot of people in my church, they would say Jesus would come tell me to turn the volume of the worship down. That's the first thing he would say.
Oh,
If
funny.
The music is too loud.
See, one of my wishes for our church is that Micah would just unleash with all of her. I can see her just holding it in. Like it's in there, but I just want one day for it to just.
Yeah.
I'm the opposite, the literal opposite to what
And
you're
when
saying.
she does, man, it is just like, oh, it gets me.
we
It's
get
just
a
like-
glimpse of it on Thursdays.
Yeah.
It's never once occurred to me to come in here and complain about anything.
That right I want 800 of you.
It's just never even occurred to me. Like, I'm a guest. I don't know. This is just like, that's not
Oh, man.
what it's about. It never occurred to me.
Maybe it's almost been a year, so maybe just give it.
Yeah,
I'm not
maybe.
sure. Or go to a different church. Like as soon as you start, going around and they call it, church shoppers or church jumpers.
Yeah.
Whatever. I don't know the answer, but I know I had one person in this office at one point years ago tell me, he goes, I have the gift of walking into any church and finding out what's wrong with it. And I told him, I said,
I don't know if that's a gift.
well, I told him, I said, that's called sin, brother.
Yeah, that's funny.
He sounds like Seinfeld.
That's what I said. Yeah, it's like, that's called sin. Like, why don't you go there and help? Like, a church is a place where you come and we are the church. We judge it as this like franchise where you walk in and go, I don't like the paint on the wall. I don't like the lighting, and I don't like what the burger they're serving at this restaurant. Listen, the church is a people, and it's only as strong as the people who are coming to a part of it. And I think one thing we have tried to create at the Orchard is to be vulnerable and be real. And for me to make that okay for us, because one thing Jesus wants is he doesn't want to walk in a church and no one has a problem. And we're all doing really good.
Yeah.
And hey, brother, hey, sister, and we're all pretending. And for me, that's a big part of it is the pretending. We should be real. I think another thing, and I really am careful when I'm saying, like, I'm going to speak where Jesus say and tell you what he would say, because he would walk in there, he would sit in this office, and I would humbly want to hear I ask him, what should we change? Like, I want this answer. I know we're an imperfect church. We are not getting everything right. And so this is a really important question to me. But I think for a lot of us, he would talk to the American church specifically and say, I asked you in the Bible to come follow me, to die to yourself, to die to your own needs and desires and rights, and come live for me. And the thought for an American to die to myself and live for him is the most contrary thought in the world. Like, I am here to live for myself. In America, the more independent we are, the better. We are staunchly independent, and that's great. Independence and freedom, that is awesome.
Right.
But for a Christian, it is fierce dependence. Maturity spiritually is marked by increased dependence on God. So it's an opposite pathway. And so for a lot of churches, it's why are we not coming and dying? Why are we coming and living our best life now? Why are we coming and talking about being rich and being, if you just have enough faith and give enough money, you'll be rich and you'll never be sick. And Jesus, I mean, if you look at Jesus and Paul and the people of the Bible, they did not have it all. They gave their life to it. And Paul talks about how he was shipwrecked and beaten and all these things. So I think Jesus would talk a lot about our American culture and how he called it. When you are called to come follow Jesus, he asked the disciples when he first met them, Like, drop your nets and come follow me. Can you imagine if they had held onto those nasty, heavy fishing nets and tried to follow him? How long would they have been able? It would have been exhausting. They would have tried to drag their old life with them, and after a while, it wouldn't have worked. And they would have said, "This Christian thing isn't working out."
Yeah.
Well, that's a lot of it. Jesus has asked us to set things down, to put things aside. And I think for myself and our culture, a lot of us, man, we like things. I don't want to set anything down. I want to pick more things up. And so you want me to deny myself? I deny myself nothing. I'm instant gratification. That's a lot of how our culture would tell us to feel. So I think that's a big part of it, what he would say to us.
Do you think, and just as you talk about that, and Aaron and I have talked a lot about this too, that people get so wrapped up in their identities, whether positive or negative, they, even if it's not good, we don't want to let it go because it's familiar. So like dropping that fishing net, you're like, well, no, I've just carried this fishing net my whole life. I'm a fisherman. Why would I drop this?
Oh my goodness.
Even if it's uncomfortable and stinky and old and wet and whatever.
Yeah.
So even in the negative things, like people were all afraid to drop these sort of like victimhood or negative mentalities and just give it to God too.
That is so true. You just pinpointed it. There's a story in the Bible where Jesus heals this blind man, and the blind man has his cloak on him. And for a blind person who's a beggar, their cloak is everything. It covers them at night. This guy has no safety net in this culture. He has no charity organizations. He gets from people and so he starts asking Jesus to save him and heal me. And everybody, Jesus does. And it says he throws his cloak aside. And that was his old identity. And he followed Jesus after that. And I always wondered, can you imagine Jesus heals this man and then the crowd moves on. You have these disciples and these serious people. And you have this one dude who's following Jesus. And he's like, oh. Can you imagine the first 5 minutes? He's like,
yeah, look at that.
And everybody's like, yeah, we get it. We get it, Bartimaeus. We've been looking at it our whole life.
I think that's kind of where we are, right?
That is you guys. When someone comes to Jesus, like, do you guys know the power the Bible says we have? Listen, guys, we've been looking at this for you. It'll wear off. Calm down. We get it. I think that's the sad part is we're called to follow Jesus with these eyes, these new, fresh eyes of like, oh my goodness, it's true. But part of for this guy, Bartimaeus, was casting aside. Could you imagine if he got healed, his eyes opening, or a paralyzed man or someone who's sick and they get healed and they go, thank you, Jesus. And he goes, I'm going to chill here. I'm just going to stay here and beg the rest of my life.
It's comfortable.
I kind of like this, Matt, and I really like living off the charity of others. We would think that's hilarious, sad, but here's the reality. When Jesus died, he had all these fishermen follow him, right? And then they believe over the course of 3 years, they come to believe in him, but then they watch him get crucified. And there's no Christians at this point. Like they flee. They're like, this is not it. And then at some point, Jesus finds them. And you know where he finds them? He finds them back fishing.
Yeah.
They're like, well,
that was fun.
We better go back to what we're doing.
Good run. We had a good run.
Straight back to it.
How often does God come to the shore and go, hey, Daniel, hey, Aaron, hey, Crystal? I'm like, oh,
that
back in my old life again.
Yeah.
And Peter jumps out of the boat. He had a moment of clarity. And sometimes I'm church on Sunday, sometimes when I'm reading the Bible, sometimes I have these moments of clarity of Jesus on the shore going, hey, I go, oh, I'm back in my old life.
I have them daily.
Yeah.
So I don't know.
How did this close get back on?
Yeah. I was like, wait a minute.
Yeah, that's great. Part of it is the Bible talks about, it says, take off the robes of sin and shame and take off your old life. Hebrews talks about like casting aside the things that hold you back. But then there's a lot of other language in the New Testament that says put on. Yeah. Put on. There's a replacement theology. Like there's a replacement that the very thing you're getting rid of, this identity, to remember that there's a new one that replaces it and to reinforce that. So
that's cool.
It's a good question.
I have a question regarding, I guess, the people that come and speak to you. I have a working theory that you don't share everything that you can see happening. So the reason I say that, in a good way, I have a feeling that you let people experience things that you could just give them the answer for. Is there truth to that? The reason I say I have you obviously know my story and some future events, but that was one of them. But there's another one where when I first came in here and sat down and I said, I have this feeling that I've never been able to put my finger on, I've never understood, but I have this like internal attraction to swords, and I can't explain it. And you could have said that's the sword is the word of the Spirit, or you could have said it. You could have told me right there and then, and you didn't.
No,
you just said, "I got a sword over there."
Yeah, yeah. You asking me like about that the refraining? Man, I love how. So one of my, let me just go. How do I say this? My son, in this we did these strength finder tests for my kid, whatever. He is a discoverer. He loves to discover. It is his primary function to discover new. And so part of it as a father is not telling him everything, solving it all. And what you learn is in just going through life as a pastor is when someone discovers it on their own, they own it.
Yeah.
And it's like, it's a journey. Your journey is between you and God. I'm here as a guide and a help and a brother and a friend. I'm not here as the Bible answer man just to give you all those things. And so it really is important to me that when we sat in this office and talked about some of those things. And I hinted like, well, there's some possibilities for some things. And there are some ways that God is going to join your story and uniquely you. And I'm going to let him help you discover those places. Because when you do, it will mean so much more to you than if you came in here and I said, let me just tell you the 5 things that absolutely describe everything you need. And you're like, well, it's like going to the doctor. Yeah. Here's the 5 things I need. So I 100% believe that discovery is the path to ownership. And I believe God hides things in the Bible, not from us, but for us.
Yeah, I believe that too.
Yeah, he wants you to find them. And so part of it is to teach. Whenever my ministry is done, I hope that one thing people have learned is to love the word, that there's things in there that we can find. I don't have a degree. Yeah. I don't have a seminary degree. I'm doing this. I love it. And it's also true with life, Crystal, as you go through your life and God, and you discover things the way he knit you together. How much more powerful is that than if I just told you?
Well, so this is funny. The other day, okay. So when I came to church on Easter a year ago and the choir sang Waymaker, right? And then my girls loved it. And I ran into you the next day and I was like, they've been singing it. And they looked this up. And like, I didn't even know that Maple knew how to look up a song based on lyrics, whatever it was. And they've been singing it until that's been a song for us.
Yeah.
Since then.
Yeah.
And the other day I was like, Aaron, you know the Bible verse, like from Isaiah where he makes a way? He's the way, he's the way maker. And he was telling
so I'm like confused. Yeah. Like, yeah.
Yeah, it's in the song.
And God was telling me a year ago when I was in here that he was going to make a way for me.
Yeah.
But it literally took me until Sunday.
Yeah.
Almost daily to put all of that in. I'm like, oh my gosh. He did put that there for me to find.
I love that.
I know. Me too.
So you are deep in the Old Testament, Isaiah, and it's like, bing, like lights up for you. I love that.
Oh my gosh. But then just like little those, like we call them winks. Like he puts things for us to find.
Yeah.
And so a year ago, he was telling me like, it's going to be okay. You're going to be okay. I'm going to make a way for you. Yeah.
And here was the way.
Yeah.
At least part of it.
Yeah.
That is a wonderful story.
And I think that expands to the broader church and what you're building here as well, in that the easy thing to do would to give people the answers, and you would get more people doing it that way, but those people wouldn't be nearly as connected. And so there's almost this battle of like getting people in the door through soft messaging, or keeping less but far more dedicated followers of Christ by giving them the truth or allowing them to find it themselves. And I think that was a good example. And I think that's what you're trying to build.
Yeah, that's a really good one. And I think part of it is, you said there'll be more, the first part was it will be more dependent. But if I give all the answers, they're going to be dependent just on me.
That's what I was going to say. Then they're going to turn to you as God.
Yeah.
Right.
And the greatest thing I can do is just facilitate this. From you to God, from you to him. Because as soon as I get in there and it's all about me and I'm the guy, first of all, talk about pressure. Second of all, that's not an appropriate place for me to be the everything and be those places. And I've been there, been a part of that. And one of the things I wanted here is for people I respect the journey. I respect the last year you've been on. Yeah. And that the answers, and honestly, the answers you could have gotten the first week you were here probably would not have mattered as much. But when you find them a year later, you've been through a year of journey, it's amazing.
Yeah.
And that's much more important for people to, as a pastor, for people to learn dependence on God and not their preacher. Man, that's huge.
From a testimony perspective, part of the reason we really wanted to do this podcast was It occurred to me, well, the podcast idea came first, but then it occurred to me afterwards that like I'm walking around here and I don't know the actual testimony of anybody unless I happen to be there when they got baptized.
Yeah.
And that's only going to be 5 minutes. And then additional to that, I'll probably forget.
Yeah.
And so we want to share testimonies so that people from in here can see those. So I just wonder how much, if you're willing to share some of your testimony.
Yeah, I'm happy to. One thing I appreciate what you just said is, and what your first guest guy is a great example of this. You know, he got baptized and we had to edit his testimony down to be, for what we had. But then for having here on this longer platform and to hear the whole I listened to the whole thing. I was like, I got to get this guy up on somewhere else. I talked about getting him another stage somewhere. The Bible says there's power in testimony. It says that. Like there is power in our story. And there are days where I'm preaching and someone gives their testimony and I just want to go, I got nothing more to add.
Yeah.
That right there just connected to more of you than any of this stuff I got right here.
Yeah, like this past weekend.
That is so powerful. And I think part of it, if you guys choose to platform testimony, I mean, you are platforming power biblically that says there's power in that. And so you guys want to hear part of my testimony. And you heard some of it earlier, raised in a Christian home. That's what you're asking, right?
Yep.
Raised in a Christian home. I was a really good kid. I was really mischievous, but I wasn't really bad. Went to college and my mischievousness got me into some trouble. And that's where the whole stepping out. I think my testimony really starts once I got to the mega church. And that started to rise and all my dreams were being made true. I mean, I always felt even from this small town, I really believed I had a technicolor coat on, a multicolored coat, and I'm destined for greatness. I always had a sense God's going to do something amazing through me. And by confidence, my mom would say we made a little bit of a mistake with Daniel and we made him too confident. I was just so confident. And life has a way. Joseph in the Old Testament is my favorite because he goes from this multicolored coat to the pit, to the prison, to Potiphar work. I mean, the order he goes, and it's just this breaking out of him, these things that he needed to get broken and built into him before he went to the ultimate destiny. So for me, it's not so much, did I ever end up under a bridge doing drugs? It's that I was a kid trying to do it all right. And I believed that I was on the mission. I got married there in Georgia. And in the first year of my marriage, she had her first affair. And I did it all right. I lived everything the way I thought it should be. I saved myself for marriage. I did all the things. I mean, I was trying to say, God, I'm going to follow you and I'm going to be a pastor who's going places. And I was. And when that happened, it was such a betrayal, I thought, of the way God should do. God, I did it all right and you messed it up. How did you do this? Why did you do this? And that was the first thread unraveling on this theology I have where we as Christians believe in karma more than anybody else. And we believe if we do the right things, God protects us. And if we go to church and we give the money, if we do this, God and I have a deal. I'm not going to get sick. My kids aren't going to get cancer. And when life happens, because Jesus said, in this life, you'll have trouble. When life brings you trouble, we don't look at the trouble and go, how could this happen? We look at him and go, how could you let this happen? That's what we do as believers. And that's the indication that we have this Christian karma belief. Yeah. That's where it started for me. I did everything right. And this is what I get. Not she betrayed me. You betrayed me. You betrayed me. And so when we were married for 7 years and it was really difficult. God did not, I believe in the covenant of marriage. And I promised him I would stay married. Not just her, him. And so I could not let that go until he released me from it. So for 7 years, I battled through this really difficult season. And there was multiple affairs and it was good, bad, and ugly. At the same time, ministry is going great. We are growing by tens. We are in a magazine, fastest growing church in the nation, doing conferences, traveling around, all this stuff. But yet at home, my life was a complete and utter train wreck of epic proportions. And so some of those questions you asked earlier, how do you almost insulate yourself or fill yourself for the pressure and for the public performance? I have preached in front of thousands and gone home to a place that was completely devoid of godliness, peace, any kind of power, any kind of trust. I have lived a completely empty life. And I was told in that mega church, one thing, this is, I don't always tell this, but I met with the leadership of the church, and they were going to help us through this affair, right? And he looked me in the eye and he said, Daniel, you can't tell anybody about this. And I said, what do you mean? He goes, my best friends are on staff with me. They're still like, they're at my wedding. They're still some of my best friends. He said, you can't tell anyone on staff. You have one elder here at the church that you can tell. This guy. And like, okay, I guess you're my new best friend because you hold all the keys to my life now. And you know what it did? It created this place inside my heart where I had a private world for like the first time that no one had access to, because I had to go out and be pastor, and I had to go to work and be on staff. And you can't know that my wife's sleeping with somebody else. And I just found the letter last night. You can't know. I mean, the amount of pretending I had to do and pretense that had to come with being a super pastor. And then to have an inner world that is just lonely. And Jesus talks about that. You have to confess. You have to let this stuff out. I was told not to. And so when I came to a point where I realized I cannot win ministry, and I cannot win my own heart, and I can't win my marriage. There was 3 things: ministry, my heart, and marriage. They're all going to die unless I start choosing which one goes first.
Right.
So I went to the pastor. I said, I'm resigning. And it was the only good thing I had at the time, but it was also the worst thing. So then I was left with my heart and my marriage, and pretty soon it was obvious that the marriage was just not viable. God released me of that, and then I was left with my heart, and there was not much left.
Yeah.
I didn't trust him. I didn't trust females. I didn't trust the church. I didn't trust, and I come from this super trusting Enneagram 7 like lifestyle where, hey, everybody's my friend and I grew up great, to I don't trust anybody, and I certainly don't trust you. I believe you, Jesus, for salvation, but I don't want anything else out. I don't want anything from you. And that was a journey for me back to a place where I need to be dependent again. Because when you don't trust Jesus, when you feel like he's betrayed you that big, you can't move past that place. So for me, the real testimony started right there of saying, I believe in you for fire insurance for hell someday. But I'm just going to go ahead and be honest where other people aren't. That's all I ever want from you.
Wow.
That's it. You leave me alone, and I'm going to go carve out the best life I can with some jobs. And that's where the testimonies first started kind of growing. And it was the darkest anxiety and depression and just wrestling, getting some success in careers. I was working in jiu-jitsu gyms and managing those, and then ended up becoming a banker and doing that stuff. Had some opportunities, but still nothing would ever fill that place with me where I had just this big wound. And there's a thing I say about wounds. We get wounded in life. We get wounded by people, by life, and wounds happen. God's never promised to keep us from getting wounded. So wounds happen. What you can't do is let a wound stay infected or dirty. So I dedicated myself with some help of some people. I opened up finally. And I would go, let me tell you about my ex-wife. And they would say, tell me about you. I mean, I don't even, we don't even need to go there. And I remember I was so angry at first. Like, well, don't you want to hear how bad?
Yeah.
Like,
how bad my story was.
No, I want to hear about you.
Or how bad this other person was, right?
I'm justified in being here. I'm justified in my dysfunction because of theirs. And what I learned was one person's caving in their character does never excuse us by caving.
Mm-hmm.
We talked about this recently.
Yeah, it's a strong thing. And so I went on a journey to clean out the wound of my heart with trust and with God. Because the best thing is, life will wound you if through his spirit and therapy and help and counselors and community. And when you clean that out, it creates a scar.
Yeah.
And scars tell stories. So to this day, I carry a scar that's tender, kind of like I do with the surgery I just had. And mine is in trust. And so my wife and I we're married 15 years this year. And so we have this agreement because her first husband died in a ski accident. So she has her wound. And we have this agreement. If I ever have this moment where I'm afraid that she's cheating, that's my wound talking. And a lot of times if you walk to your spouse and go, hey, are you cheating on me? Their natural reaction is, who do you think I am? Like anger. And we've come to this place of seeing each other's wounds where she goes, no. And here's you can check. And I don't even check it. I just want to hear.
Yeah.
It hardly ever happens. But when it does, she makes space for me. or when she talks about abandonment, I make space for her because we shouldn't be walking wounded, but we are definitely walking with scars that are still tender. And so my entire testimony, I think, began when I crashed from the biggest, most greatest accomplishment of my life in that church. That's when my life started. And learning to walk as someone with scars and being honest about them in this church has allowed me to say, church, it's okay. Here's where I'm wounded. Here's where I'm hurt. And here's the power of Jesus. Because if he can do this in my life, maybe he can do it in yours. And I just buried that old pastor who was perfect and who was told to get on stage and be confident, even though home was terrible. I buried that guy and I can't stand that. And so to a fault in this church, we are honest. We're authentic.
I mean, that's one of the things that walking in here, I was like, okay.
We're real.
Yeah.
So you bring your woundedness, you bring your hardship, you bring you bring it here. And Jesus said, listen, it's not the healthy who need a doctor, it's the sick.
Yeah.
He said that.
Right.
And yet somehow we've come to believe in American churchianity that you better get your act together before you go to church. You better walk in there and pretend like you're all healed up. And Jesus said, that's not who I came for.
Right.
I came for the sick and the wounded. So come, bring your dysfunction, bring your woundedness. You're going to fit right in.
I love it. Linking that back to the start, I'm sure in the moment, I mean, it sounded absolutely exhausting. So I imagine it had to be exhausting because in essence, you're acting in one moment and you're going home to reality.
Yeah.
But looking back now, are you able to make that connection with like what you spoke about with the athlete seeing opportunity to grow and learn from that episode?
Looking back at my past,
yeah,
do I see it do I learn from that?
Yeah, what did you learn, if anything?
Yeah. Oh man, my greatest lessons come from my greatest failures. The deeper the valley, the more glorious the view once you get out of it. And you'd never want to just forget where you came from. You look back to that and you go, God, thank God. And you learn about yourself in the grind of the valley and the darkness that you don't learn in the good times. And here's one, as a dad, let's take my daughter, she plays soccer. If she only knew me as dad when she scored goals and when things were great, like when she gets good grades and when things are good, I go, oh, if she only knew me as that kind of dad, she would not know me.
Right.
But when she's hurt, when she's failed, I learned a side of God I wouldn't have learned as a nice pastor's kid who did all these things. I learned the side of God where I went to the bottom and almost lost it all except for this one thread that I still clung to Jesus as Savior. I gave it all up. And from that right there, I met a God at the bottom of a pit I didn't know existed. I met the face of God in the dirtiest, darkest places that I never knew during my time in seminary or whether I was on stage. And that's the God, that's the side of him that I learned in that dark valley. I would never do it again, but I would never undo it. And for a long time, I just wished that never would have happened. And now, seeing all that God has redeemed, I'm like, I would never take it back. I know myself. I know you, my father, and now I have this wife. I mean, my God has blessed me. And my favorite word when it comes to what Jesus does is this word redemption. I love this word, kind of churchy sounding, but redemption is a word. Like if things break down and you redo it, that means you just kind of do it over. If you refurbish it, you kind of make it newer. If you renew it, you but when God redeems something, he doesn't take it back to what you lost. He gives you more than he takes it beyond what it ever was. And his promise is redemption, to take broken lives where they can't even imagine it could go. And that's what he promises for you. Yeah. That's what he promises for you. And that's what he's done for me. So the lessons I learned in the past, first of all, I learned so much about ministry back then that I was angry at all those pastors and all that stuff that I'm using now. Like literally, I am operating now out of an education and ministry I got during the darkest time of my life. But also, you guys see me as a pastor now. You wouldn't recognize me then. You would still think I'm confident, but it was a different confidence.
Yeah,
my confidence comes from being broken and shattered and rebuilt. Back then, it came from like, you better get out there and perform in front of these people. It's just different.
It's beautiful.
Some quick fire questions before we wrap this one. Who's your favorite pastor?
My dad.
Thought that might be the answer. What about outsider?
My dad's my favorite pastor. Man, again, you're gonna get me in trouble because it's, depending on who I say. You guys don't even know this, but depending on who someone says is their favorite pastor, is a big deal in Christian circles.
Interesting.
Are you not supposed to ask that question?
No, you can ask it, but like if I said that I like this certain pastor, like, this guy's he's a heretic, or this person.
They'll assume you share politics.
I don't even want to get into it, but like Tim Keller's one of them. Timothy Keller, he passed. He's one of the greatest minds we've ever had. I look at different pastors and preachers, and I like each of them for what they offer me. Andy Stanley offers me practical biblical advice. I love the way he does that. Tim Keller thinks deeply. My dad is authentic, and my dad covers all the bases. But if I'm asking for one favorite pastor, I don't even know. Because right now I realize, having been there and been one of those pastors, that we're all completely flawed. And so find one who you like, kind of what he says about this stuff preaching over here, and like this one over here. But I'm not going to attach my life to any of those guys. Does that make sense? So I have some favorite preachers.
Smart.
Do you got any?
Go ahead. Let me see. I got way off of my my flow, so no, I'm good. I have a lot to think about.
I had a lot of, I was like all these verses and stuff, and man, I just got like, you guys are awesome when you interview, when you open up the floor. So
we found that everyone we've interviewed, we had an idea and we wanted to dig into a lot of pasts, especially with Guy, Christian, everyone, because we actually did one with Christian before the one that went live.
Yeah.
And we're trying to get him to talk about his past, and we could, because once somebody's been saved, the past is irrelevant.
Yeah.
They don't care.
Yeah.
No one wants to talk about it.
Yeah.
They're just like, no, let me tell you about God. Let me tell you about Jesus.
I love that. That's pretty cool.
So I love that part. I love that that's how it kind of ends up, that we have a framework, but it goes wherever it wants to go.
Yeah.
And that's all we got time for today. So I hope you guys enjoyed it so far. Again, we're going to be back with part 2, but we're going to flip the mics here. We're going to let Daniel talk to us and ask us about the podcast, where it came from, where the idea and how it all came about. So keep your eye out in the next couple of weeks for that one to drop. And we're going to flip the mics and hear a bit of our story. Stay tuned. Thanks for joining.